picture this. The entire digital globe just goes completely dark. A sudden worldwide blackout where all the tools, all the platforms we rely on every single second just vanish.
Imagine this for a second. You sit down on the couch, you grab the remote, you're about to watch Netflix, it won't load. Just an endless spinning wheel. Dead air. Absolutely nothing. So you switch to your phone. You open Discord to text your friends. Error. You try updating a really critical app for work. Error. Within hours, developers all over the world are staring at broken screens. They're frantically checking their servers, they're monitoring their networks, completely bracing for what looked for all the world like a massive, coordinated cyber attack.
A single, terrifying question was rippling through the entire tech world. Did the backbone of the internet just break? How could everything just go offline all at once?
Now, most people assumed it was a highly sophisticated hack, but the real culprit back in 2016 wasn't a massive attack at all. It was actually far stranger. We're not talking about a state-sponsored cyber attack or a severed underwater cable. Somewhere in the world, one single programmer deleted just 11 tiny lines of code. Not 11 million, not 11,000, just 11. I know, it sounds literally impossible, right? How on earth could a handful of keystrokes bring the digital world to its knees?
Well, to understand how this is even possible, we really have to uncover a bit of a dirty little secret about how the modern internet is constructed. See, developers don't sit in dark rooms writing websites entirely from scratch. Imagine a giant Lego city. You wouldn't melt and mold every single plastic Lego brick yourself, would you? No, you'd reuse bricks that already exist. Software works exactly the same way. Instead of writing every single feature from absolute zero, developers reuse code that other people have already written. It's faster, it's a lot cheaper, and honestly, it's brilliant.
And this brilliantly illustrates the crux of our story. Because the piece of code in question, a little program called LeftPad, had a job that was mind-numbingly simple. Say a program expects a 5-digit number, but you only have a single 7. LeftPad just adds zeros to the front to make it 00007. That is it. No artificial intelligence, no complicated math, absolutely no secret algorithms. It's just a tiny formatting tool made up of 11 lines of JavaScript. You could probably type the whole thing out before your morning coffee gets cold. So here's the obvious question, right? Why didn't every programmer just write those 11 lines themselves? Well, it's because developers heavily prioritize efficiency. If your neighbor has a ladder, you're not going to go buy your own, you just borrow theirs. And the tech world does this on a massive scale through something called NPM. It's basically a sprawling online library of shared code. Thousands of projects depended on it, and nobody thought twice about simply downloading it rather than rewriting it from scratch.
Until one day, they just disappeared. You see, the creator of LeftPad was a developer named Azar Kochilu, and he ended up getting involved in a disagreement over the ownership of a completely different software package name. Rather than continue this argument, he made a seemingly simple decision. He legally removed many of his own projects from NPM, and one of those projects just happened to be LeftPad. He wasn't trying to attack anyone, he certainly wasn't trying to break the internet, he simply deleted software that rightfully belonged to him.
Now at first, nothing happened. Complete silence. But then developers began building their applications for the day. And suddenly, absolute chaos. Red error messages started appearing everywhere. Projects completely refused to compile. Vital system updates failed. Applications just stopped working across the board. The problem wasn't that LeftPad did something massively important. The problem was that thousands of other programs expected it to be right there.
It's kind of like an industrial bakery waking up to zero flour. The bakers still know exactly how to bake. The massive industrial ovens still work perfectly. The recipes haven't changed a bit. But without that one simple, practically invisible ingredient, nothing gets made. That is exactly what happened to software around the world. The massive tools worked, but that one missing tiny ingredient brought everything to a grinding halt.
And what makes this truly staggering is the sheer scale of the paralysis. We are not talking about hobby blogs or small startups here. The outage hit absolute titans. Facebook, Netflix, Airbnb, they were completely paralyzed. And the craziest part of all, most of these massive corporations weren't even actively using LeftPad themselves. Okay, let's dive into this, because understanding this dependency chain is absolutely crucial. Think about a pizza delivery. The shop needs flour, the flour mill relies on trucks, and those trucks need fuel from a distant refinery. If a valve breaks at the refinery, your pizza never arrives. Modern software is built the exact same way. Giant tech companies depended on software that depended on other software, which eventually, somewhere deep down in the foundation, depended on LeftPad. A tiny break at the very bottom of the chain shattered everything towering above it.
The internet needed an emergency rescue, and it needed it fast. As more and more software basically ground to a halt, NPM faced a massive dilemma. Normally, their rules firmly stated that once a package was deleted, it stayed deleted. But, this was not a normal situation. The tech world was bleeding out, so they had to do the unthinkable in the open source community. They broke their own core rules and forced LeftPad back online. Within hours, developers could finally build their projects again, and the immediate crisis was over.
So what does this all mean? The crucial point is this. LeftPad didn't really break the internet. 11 lines of code aren't actually powerful enough to crash the global network. The real problem, the true lesson of this entire event, was something much bigger. Millions of developers had unknowingly built enormous, towering digital systems right on top of tiny pieces of software maintained by just a handful of everyday people. From the outside, the internet looks massive, robust, and completely unstoppable. But underneath all the slick interfaces, it's a terrifyingly fragile tower of tiny Lego blocks.
It really reveals a profound truth about modern technology. Behind every click is an invisible army of unpaid, open-source developers building the tiny pieces that keep our entire digital world running. The greatest invention in human history doesn't just rest on massive corporate server farms. It rests on the shoulders of individuals working late nights with a laptop and a cup of coffee. So the next time you open an app and it works flawlessly, ask yourself, what other tiny, invisible building blocks are we unknowingly relying on right now? And what exactly happens when the next one suddenly disappears?